the game, I don't play that fact. Once you let me go, no, you never come back. I'ma be the best that you never had. I'ma kick back when you fake like that. Head out of the game, I don't play that fact. Once you let me go, no, you never come back. I'ma be the best that you never had. I'ma kick, 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 I'ma be the best that you never had. Rumpa pa pa, rumpa pa pa, see I got it. Rumpa pa pa, rumpa pa pa, no you want it. I don't flex, I'm success. Effortless, I'm like a rumpa pa pa, rumpa pa pa, see I got it. I don't flex, I'm success. I don't flex, I'm success. I don't flex.
As a team, that's what we need to do, is just prove people wrong.
Coach Dan Hurley and the Huskies won the 5th national title for the University of Connecticut after a dominant performance throughout the NCAA tournament.
Welcome to a special edition of Pensari Basketball as we take a look, a deep dive, if you will, at the first prospect that we're going to be doing. And I would like, this has been a community initiative. I made a community post yesterday, and I hope some people took me up on my offer to put on your scouting hat and let's look into a very special player, Jordan Hawkins. So first and foremost, the Raptors will, in all likelihood, be drafting 13th overall. There is a 4.8% chance they move up, in which case Jordan Hawkins will probably not be in play. And a lot of the other prospects that we'll be looking at are not in play. I know some people are pretty bummed out that the Raptors moved down in the draft, but to be honest, the more I dig into this draft, the more I'm finding a ton of intriguing prospects ranked anywhere from 8 all the way to 18. Split the difference, you get to 13, right? So 13th could be the place that the Raptors find their own Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker, Kobe Bryant. I don't know about that, but if there's a Kobe in this draft, I'm sure the Messiah will find him. So with Jordan, I've been going back and forth with a friend about this for a couple of days now, and there's a reason I'm highlighting him first, and it's because I think he fits so beautifully with what the Raptors don't have. So Black Nubian saying Ray Allen was a little quicker. So one of the more common comps for Jordan Hawkins has been Anfernee Simons. And honestly, comparing those prospects is hard. Simons didn't really go to college, so that's really difficult to compare. But I like him more. And obviously, throughout the course of this video, I will definitely let you know why. I put up the community post yesterday because I was hoping that enough people in this community, just as, for instance, Goateology has gotten into content creation, I thought that it would be a really cool thing for you guys to do your own dives. There's tons of information on Jordan. There's interviews, there's tape, there's entire games that you can download and just take a look at how he scores. And I think that it is important, first and foremost, why he fits with the Raptors to identify how Jordan scores. Jordan scores in a variety of ways. Someone compared him to Gary Trent Jr., but quicker. And there is a massive difference. So the friend I was talking to also compared him to Gary Trent, and I decided to go back and look at Gary's Duke footage. I watched 2 whole games of Gary Trent Jr. from Duke, and I just wanted to just evaluate how these two players stacked up as prospects. And I got to tell you, just watching the two back to back, I like Jordan so much more. Gary's a good shooter. Jordan's a lights out shooter. Gary, could move off the ball. Jordan will run you through like a bevy of screens. I'll give you an example. So consider the Raptors' current roster and assume that Scotty Barnes and Jakob Poeltl will be back. So something that Gary, will do is he'll run off a screen in the back and he'll pop up at the top, right? And he'll take the shot, or he'll put it down off the dribble and, do a couple dribbles and then boom, right? So Jordan's kind of similar, except the way that he finds space within the offense is very different. So he's not going to run you off one screen. He's going to run you off like 4 screens. And then when you think you're done, he's going to run you off a 5th screen. The release, when he catches it before you blink, it's gone. And if it's even remotely open, it's going in. He was one of the best players in the country. Titans saying he looks mid. I don't know. Why do you think he looks mid? Is he a good fit with Scotty Barnes? I think he's a great fit with Scotty. So the thing with Jordan, we're going to take a look at what Adam Spinella called his strengths and weaknesses, and hopefully we can get some callers in who've done some digging into him, and we can talk about how he fits with the Raptors. So Adam did his strengths and weaknesses, and one of the strengths obviously was his defensive upside. This is the first key place in which I think he really since years really he's longer. He's longer. 6 7 times better than Trent. Gary's a little bit more agile laterally, and I think that could help for sure. He has length, like he has serious length now. Blake Gary Trent measured in at about 6'8" wingspan, 6'5". I think once Jordan measures in, he'll probably come in closer to 6'10" on the wingspan part. He's got this incredible upside as a switchable 1-through-3 type of defender. He also works really hard on the defensive end. The other thing that I really noticed about him was his off-ball awareness, like when he's not guarding his man on the ball. This is something where I think, when you start comparing him to a guy like Simons, that's what drives me insane about watching Anfernee Simons. He's literally a 3rd percentile defender in the NBA because he literally loses his man when his man doesn't have the ball. And so, if you put a guy like Jordan Hawkins specifically up against a guy like Anfernee Simons, that's when Jordan Hawkins is going to go off for 40 points because, you just have to pay attention to him all the time. And again, he does have a ways to go in terms of physicality, like how much he needs to improve his upper body strength, but his work ethic should not be questioned. He was not a 5-star recruit. So for those of you who don't know, and this is probably going to come up multiple times, so might as well talk about it in the first episode. 5-star recruits, 4-star recruits, 3-star recruits. There are usually about 25 to 27 5-star recruits in every high school class. Okay. These rankings are done somewhat arbitrarily, and they're usually very wrong. You cannot imagine how many 5-star players go undrafted every single year, but it happens, and it's not shocking. It's difficult to gauge how good you are at the high school level because ultimately you're going up against high school kids. How are you going to react when the offense is not all about you? And I think that is where Jordan really separated because offense wasn't all, even though Okay. Um, are we back? Is it terrible? Is it okay now? I apologize. Is the audio still an issue? I'm hearing a bit of a weird. Okay, I apologize. Great. Internet instability. Okay. Is the audio completely clear? You're saying it's better. Is it like normal? I'm gonna take myself out and put myself back in. Give me 1 second, because I am definitely hearing something. In the meanwhile, evaluate these three things. These are three players that I don't know. Let me know if you can figure out who they are. Okay. I'm still getting a little bit of weirdness on my end, but hopefully it gets better as we go along. Okay, so can you let me know in the comments who you think these three players are? Not even close. First is Brittany Grider. Second is Sue Bird. That's funny. Although your timing and years are way off, I think the years should be pretty telling. Any guesses at all? So, okay, I'll give you a hint. Um, Bam. Ironic. Perfect. Yes, it is Isaiah Joe. So the second player is Isaiah Joe, and that is a player that Jordan is often compared to. Oh, it was NBA. Yes, it is NBA. I don't know why I would be flashing. Perfect. Okay. So yes, it is Ray Allen. So yeah, cool. Trivia out of the way. We will definitely get back into that very soon. Okay. So the second thing, movement shooting. Obviously, this is his biggest strength and why I think he is so great for the Raptors. The Raptors did not have a lot of movement, and for a team that tries to run motion a lot, it would really help to have someone who can actually do something without the ball in their hands. So, why is movement shooting so important for a team? So, specifically, I was thinking about this a lot over the last couple of days is, skill development with players, prospects. You can get people stronger. You can get people to become better shooters, better ball handlers. And I'm working on this, season finale type of review for Scotty Barnes. And I was thinking about, also thinking about Anthony Black, another prospect that I was looking at. And I was like, God, why is it that feel, rhythm, and an understanding of space is so difficult to teach players? And I specifically look at players like Chris Boucher and Precious Achua, players who have all the physical talents that you would want in an NBA player, but sometimes struggle with the basic elements of, where to be on the court, how to be. And it got me thinking, it was like, you know what? A player who not only has the ability to catch and release as quickly as he does, but also the awareness of how to do it. And it got me back to thinking about how Ray Allen used to do the drills that he did, how Rip Hamilton would do this. And the truth is that if everyone could do it, everyone would do it. If everyone wanted to do it, everyone would do it. But it's exhausting. Running around like 100 different screens, like the constant motion that's required, but it absolutely unlocks your entire team, right? So the Raptors are one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the league. It's not just because they don't have three-point shooters, it's because they don't have space. And very often when OG Anunoby catches it in the corner, or when Pascal Siakam catches it at the top, or even when Scotty Barnes is trying to generate a shot, it's so often that everything is so congested. Well, what motion does and what movement shooters do in general, someone like Kevin Huerter or, Landry Shamet is an example that I often bring up, but especially someone like this, is what they can do is they basically create gaps. They create gaps and they create confusion, because when you're running a guy off a screen, there's always a chance for a switch. The minute there's a chance for a switch because somebody can't get over a screen or whatever, you suddenly have a chance for mismatches. So you potentially have a Scotty Barnes in the post against a guard, or you have Jakob Poeltl feasting on a guard because the guard couldn't keep up and someone had to tag. Those pockets, of course, only happen when you have an unpredictable sort of offensive weapon. Now, of course, movement shooters can thrive next to players like a Luka Doncic or, gifted passers, but they can just thrive on their own because they unlock all sorts of gaps in the defense. Sorry, we have a private chat here. Oh, that's from Chris. Who is the last knockdown shooter that actually succeeded in our system? So this is less about being a knockdown shooter. So I think it's important to differentiate between someone who's a knockdown shooter and someone who's a great movement shooter. And it's not to say that movement shooters can't be knockdown shooters, but someone like, I don't know, a PJ Tucker, right? He can stand in the corner and he can fire off, a bunch of threes on the catch. And so PJ will have a certain amount of gravity in that corner, which means that if he's on the weak side, right, and Joel Embiid is in the post, well, now you have a defender who can't quite leave him. So it does add some dimension of space to your offense to have a guy who can just knock down shots, right? Jason Capono, I guess, was like that a little bit too. I don't remember him being too much of a movement shooter. A guy like a Ray Allen, a Rip Hamilton, these guys can catch on the move. And it's not just on the move. Like Gary can catch on the move and release. Fred can catch on the move and release. It's actually how quickly they can get into the shot off the movement that makes Jordan Hawkins probably the best. He's the best in the country at this specific thing. And I think that it's worth noting that what this can do for a team that has so many gifted playmakers. And of course, you're going to look at this and be like, Raptors hardly ever pass the ball, Rob. What are you talking about, gifted playmakers? But a guy like Jakob Poeltl, Pascal Siakam, and Scotty Barnes, if you look at Scotty Barnes as a front court player as opposed to a backcourt player, this is probably the best playmaking front court in the league outside of the Denver Nuggets. And that is all being bolstered by one guy, which is Nikola Jokic. But in terms of like three guys who play 3, 4, 5, there is not a team in the league that I can think of that has three really good playmakers. Almost every single team has a guy who just cannot make obvious passes, playing either the 4, the 5, or the 3. You take a team like, I don't know, the Cleveland Cavaliers, Isaac Okoro, he's not a playmaker, right? You take a team like the Atlanta Hawks, Clint Capella, not really a playmaker. John Collins, not really a playmaker. So having this sort of playmaking from your front court can invert your offense, and it can actually make for very interesting possibilities within your offense. The way Jordan can catch and release and move into an open space and catch and release within a second, it is actually a thing of beauty. He's one of the most interesting players to watch. Yeah, I mean, honestly, at some point you have to debate this too, because if you want to draft the best player available, like I think if it's close, you should probably go for need. I'm saying if it's close, like if it's really close, like if you're splitting hairs between two prospects, because the chances are that, drafting some very twitchy, hyper long, athletic 3-2 combo, it's just going to overlap with your roster, and maybe that player won't develop properly, right? With a guy like Jordan, if you think the upside is comparable, like very close, and chances are Jordan's going to be the better player in that comp, I think you probably go for Jordan because he'll actually get minutes for you, right? He also represents a very interesting opportunity to potentially replace Gary Trent Jr. on the very cheap. As you can probably Google and verify yourself, 13th overall pick makes nowhere near what Gary's expecting to make next year. So the third thing is he actually does have a great deal of catch and shoot impact, so he doesn't always have to be on the motion. He loves to sprint the floor in transition. And he's 49.4% on spot up catch and shoot looks. So he cannot be left alone. So not only can he do the Rip Hamilton thing, not only can he do it from very deep, he has like extended range out to about 30 feet. He can also do it. He can also do it on the catch. Like he can also stand in the corner and kind of do the OG Anunoby thing, right? So I think with the Raptors, there was so much overlap. There's a lot of guys who sort of favor the left corner. Jordan's kind of hot from everywhere, right? I've seen him pop up from the top. I've seen him, curl off 3 screens and come up on the left side, the right side. He can go deep. And he's a pretty good shooter in the mid range as well. So I really like his gravity as a shooter and how it would be unlocked with playmaking front court. Now, in terms of improvement areas, playmaking, I think honestly, I've seen some tape from him in high school where I really liked him as a playmaker and I thought he was fairly decent. I think he reads the game pretty well, but I also think that he didn't have too many playmaking opportunities at UConn this year. Also his finishing. So his inside finishing was a problem, and you'll probably see that reflected in his shooting percentages. I think sometimes it's a matter of touch and feel, small hands. There's a lot of, reasons why somebody might struggle, but I think sometimes also it is contact. It is a guy who, like for instance, a Brandon Miller, he struggles inside the paint too. And you might look at someone like Brandon Miller and you say, well, you're pretty old, you're pretty big, you're pretty athletic. You got a height advantage. That height advantage is not going to hold up, at the NBA level. And, you got a strength advantage that may not hold up at the NBA level. But with Jordan, you can really tell he's very slight of build. Like he's a very petite type of person in terms of rounded shoulders. I think some work in the weight room will help him finish through contact. I think he struggled with that a little bit. The defensive consistency part, I can definitely see that. His motor was fairly decent from the games that I watched, but I would have to study a little bit more tape on him. One very encouraging part of him, and if you look in the middle, the per 40 numbers are very encouraging. His analytics back it up as well. He literally got better at everything. Like there's not one thing that he did not get better at there. In terms of a 3-point shooter, he went from 33.3% to 38.8%, which is very encouraging. He got better as a free throw shooter. His rebounds pretty much flatlined. Assists went up, steals went up. Blocks were a little bit lower. He cut down his turnovers. He scored more points. He did it on higher he barely did it on higher volume. And, he shot 40% from the field as opposed to 35. And when you consider the fact that so many of his shots come from 3, I think it's much more like difficult to look at field goal percentage. Just like with Fred VanVleet, it'd be much better to look at an effective field goal percentage or a true shooting percentage to get a gauge of just how many of his shots come from 3, because of his 16.4 shot attempts per 40 minutes, 10 of them are coming from 3. So he's a lights out shooter from there. So my comp for him, honestly, and I was gonna probably aggravate some people, but I really see a lot of Ray Allen in him, with a bit of a caveat, which is I don't think he's anywhere near the finisher that Ray was, and I don't think he's the playmaker that Ray was. So what's a watered down Ray Allen? Is it Rip Hamilton? Is that it? Like a Rip Hamilton with more extended range, I think would be a really fair thing. And I think that the Rip Hamilton comparisons usually stem from the fact that they're both really skinny movement shooters. But what I really like about him, and this is something that I gleaned looking over the episode of Open Gym with Masai, and when Scotty was drafted, it's called Drafted. And he just kept talking about how we need workers, we need workers, we need workers. And Jordan Hawkins is that man. Like, I talked to a few people who knew him, and just to prepare this and just to understand, like, am I missing something? What am I missing? Talk to a person who played against him, and I just wanted to understand, like, what is the gap here? Like, why is he not more highly ranked? Because obviously when you win a national title, like, why isn't he as highly ranked as Jalen Suggs was coming into the draft? Well, part of it, I think, has to do with the fact that he wasn't a really highly regarded prospect, coming out of high school. Like, he was a 4-star recruit. So that means he was not one of the top 25 players in his country at the time. So the very fact that he is now rising up draft boards, and some drafts have him mocked as high as 19, some have him as high as 10. The fact that he's catapulted himself into that range can be of one of two reasons. Number one, the improvement that I just alluded to is real, and he's genuinely become a much better player than he was 2 years ago. And that should be very encouraging for you, because this is not a player who's doing something at the college level that he cannot do at the NBA level, right? Like, I mean, there's really no limitations to the way that he's getting a shot off. There's absolutely nothing wrong with his jump shot. Like, too often the Raptors have drafted players where there's like restructuring work to do in the jump shot. And, you know, there's so many, when you start to think about like, where does a jump shot go wrong? It can start with feet placement, the types of shots you can get off, consistency, where your elbow is, where your fingers are, where your hands are, how, you know, how much energy transfer there is, how many motion, like how much motion disjointment, is that a word? Motion disjointment there is from the start of your shot to the end of your shot. Like, his shot is freaking consistent. He's a lights out shooter. And so I thought that would be music to Raptor fans' ears, for starters, but I also think that his fit is just incredible with this roster. And I think that there's some upside there because, as I said, everything he's doing at the college level, he could realistically do at the NBA level. Like, there's no reason he can't come out and score, you know, with expanded space, right? Like, the NBA court is bigger. So I think about the two types of players who really thrive in bigger courts, okay? And maybe this can be an overall draft philosophy by Rob, you know, moment. Two types of players that, in my opinion, thrive on bigger courts are straight line drivers like Scotty Barnes and Giannis Antetokounmpo, and movement shooters like Jordan Hawkins. Because the more space you give them, the more difficult they are to guard. With Scotty, you know, if you look at his Florida State tape, like, everything's cramped because the court's smaller. The minute you go up a level, suddenly he's going from averaging 10 points per game in Florida State to like 15 points per game as an NBA player. And you're like, well, that's not normal, right? And for a lot of players, like, you know, combo guards and tough shot makers like a Gary Trent Jr., their numbers tend to go down at the NBA level because the more space actually doesn't help them because they're not really quick. They're not really bursty athletes. The extra space actually helps their defender. So I think with a guy like Jordan, you know, who's lightning quick on the release, there's absolutely nothing wrong with his shot. He's a relentless, tireless worker. He has really good projectable measurables. There's really nothing wrong with him as a prospect other than the fact that, in my opinion, he's weak and he wasn't really highly graded. So I would be very happy if he's the best player on the board when the Raptors pick him. I would be very excited about his potential as a six-man type of scorer for them off the bench next year. Anyways, we have two callers here. We have Chris, and then we have your GOAT. Chris, what's up?
Hey, Robert, how you doing?
I'm good.
All right, so
I'm so happy. I was like, I saw the name Chris, and I'm like, I don't know which Chris this is. Okay.
It's so funny. Like, well, obviously, Chris is short for my full name. And so I was gonna change my name to Christian because I did watch your last live when you had that.
I thought it was you. I was like, we're gonna bring Chris on, and it ended up being another Chris.
Yeah, I was worried you're gonna get us confused, but no, that's not.
No, I can hear the voice difference, bro. Yeah.
But yeah,
anyway.
So I understood the assignment. So I watched a couple games. I think I watched about 2 of his games. Funny enough,
did you watch St. John's? 31 points against St. John's. Okay.
I watched Marquette. UConn versus Marquette, and who else did I watch? I think it was Providence. But
cool. And just for anyone else listening, where did you find these games?
Oh, you can find a whole bunch on YouTube. Like, UConn has a whole bunch of games on YouTube.
Perfect.
Yeah, so so basically you detailed him pretty well. Like, there's nothing that you haven't mentioned that you haven't already mentioned. He was actually one of my favorites. He was actually one of my favorites when I thought we were going to make the playoffs. So I was hoping he'd be around like 16 to 20 range. So, But now that he's rising so high, I like him. And I think like he would actually be the pick at 13 because I think he'd be a safe bet. And especially with a team that's looking to compete next year, I think you could plug him in right away. I don't really see the upside like you do. Like, I kind of see what everybody says about the whole Gary Trent thing, but he's a lot more athletic than Gary Trent. And I don't know, I haven't really seen him handle the ball all that much in games I watched. So I'm not too sure because personally for me, I was looking for more of a shot creator with this pick. But no, I really like him. I think he would fit really nice next to Scotty. So I had a question for you. Who's the better shooter, him or what's the guy's name we have on our team again?
Joe Wieskamp.
Yeah. So who's the better shooter between the two? Because he's a good movement shooter too.
He is, and so that's what I was thinking. I was like, if you could have two of these guys, like if Wieskamp can pop for you, right, and Jordan can be there as well, then you have two guys, right, who can do this, and they can play together. Like they're both good defenders, like good enough defenders that you could play them together at the 2-3. Like that would be such a wicked thing to have. And they're both young.
Yeah.
Honestly, as shooters, they're different. I think, man, it's hard to pick between the two, like who's a better shooter. The percentages would say Joe Wieskamp's a better shooter. The pedigree would say Joe's a better shooter, but I like Jordan's. I like how he gets a shot off better. I don't know if that makes sense.
It's so quick. It's so quick how the way he leaves his hands. And like I didn't know how good of a defender he was until I watched these two games I just watched.
Mhm.
Like I think it was the first game I watched. I think it was the Marquette game. Like he made like 3 like defensive plays back to back, like possessions back to back. Like
Yeah.
he broke up a steal. When I watch these games, because like I'm more of an eye test type of guy. I'm not so much of a like stats and everything, but that's why I like your show, because I like it when you bring up stats so it can kind of back up what I see on
Right.
like what I see on the screen.
Mhm.
But yeah, so like I really like how he mixes it up in there. Like I don't like players that naturally don't like contact. Like that's always a big flag for me. Like if a player is not willing to get like physical or like put his hand in to get a steal or something and like mix it up necessarily. So that's always a big red flag for me. But like he'll muck it up in there. He'll dive in there for a steal. And he's long, he's athletic, he holds his ground. His lateral quickness is really good. Like he moves his feet really well. So like
Yeah. Look, I think there's a lot of reasons why a prospect might get overlooked. And I think sometimes it's something as simple as like their build, how they talk, how they look, their measurements, like just a first impression sort of glance. And I understand that on the high school level, like I was just looking at those high school rankings, just from last year. And there are guys who were top 5, top 6 in that draft who might not go draft in the high school rankings that were 5-star recruits that might not get drafted this year. Like they might go undrafted, like straight up. The guy from Texas, whose name I can't remember right now.
Keontae George.
Nope. God, what was his name? Something Mitchell.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like I mean, he just declared for the draft, and like I mean, there's a very good chance. Like, and again, it's like he doesn't shoot threes. He's very athletic, and obviously in high school he's going to be a beast, right? I think he played for Montverde, but ultimately, you know, like you level up at the next level, everyone's athletic. So what can you actually do to? And I think that with Jordan, he's exactly the type of player that usually gets overlooked because he's a bit of a late bloomer in the sense that, again, 4-star recruit, people have a sort of bias towards
Don't
that.
you feel like the Raptors are drawn to these late bloomers though?
Yes, they are.
I've noticed that recently with all their draft pick, like going back to like DeLon Wright. That's another reason why I kind of feel like he will be the pick, because I feel like Raptors usually like a little, not like, I don't know, like players with a little bit more experience compared, at least so their draft record shows that at least. Barnes totally
yeah.
all that, but we've never had a top 5 pick before with
Other than Scotty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what the Raptors like to do is they like to look past the cognitive bias, you know, that other people might be exhibiting, right? So they might look at a prospect and say, well, they're a little bit older, or they're a little too young, or they're from another country, they don't speak very well, they have you know, an injury that maybe the Raptors can clear up and with their medical staff like OG Anunoby. Like there's always an element of value hunting with the Raptors, right?
That's true.
When they're trying to look past something that maybe other people are getting distracted by, right? And so with Jordan, I think, you know, first of all, fun fact for anyone who watched that Iowa LSU game, do you know where I'm going to go with this?
Isn't he cousins with Reese?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's so crazy. And then he was asked point blankly who would win in a game of horse, and he very humbly responded he would win because he's a better shooter. I for whatever reason I love that. I did a little bit of digging into him more like personal digging into him, because I'm trying to take this to the next level. Like I want to understand like who his people are, who his
For
family
sure.
is, and stuff like that. And everything that came back was like super positive. I did the same thing for Scotty when we were thinking about drafting him. Like, so I wanted to look up like who his parents were and who his friends were, and where he grew up, and like trying to understand what his coaches were like, how his teammates felt about him, and stuff like that. And the thing with Jordan is like his teammates seem to genuinely love him. His coach seems to believe in him tremendously, and he comes from really great people, right? So like his family upbringing, everything is awesome. So
Did
I
you
think
see,
that. Hmm?
sorry, I didn't mean
Go
to
ahead.
interrupt you, but like, did you see any like shot creation in high school at all? In the high school team?
Yeah, I saw flashes of it. But again, like, you know, it's hard to say like like what kind of shot creation did I see, like Anthony Black level type of shot
I've
creation,
seen
or
that.
no. Yeah, so like I mean, what specifically are you looking for? Like Gary Trent level shot creation?
I guess in a way, but like just him like trying to get to the rim at all.
Yeah, we do see a little bit of that in high school, but again, like it's difficult to say who he is right now because again, physically he's not that strong,
Because I
right?
feel like he could leverage his athleticism a lot more than he does. I like when he's coming down pin downs. I feel like he should try to go to the rim a lot harder and try to dunk it more often. I feel like I don't know, at least from what I've seen, because he's very athletic. I think that's an undersold part about his game.
I think he's athletic too. His endurance is next level to have the energy to run off like four screens and still have the legs and also dial it in on defense and still have the legs to hit to have a consistent jump shot is crazy, right? Like I was having a debate with somebody on Instagram yesterday about Anfernee Simons, right? And of
Mhm.
course, this is a common target because for whatever reason people think that Pascal Siakam to Portland is a done deal. In this constant, well, Simons is kind of like what you want, next to Scotty. Like, and every single time that happens, I'm just like, defense. Like, I
Yeah.
hate his defense. He's a third
Mm.
percentile defender per most analytics. He gets lost off the ball all the time. He's never shown me any hint from AAU to the NBA that he's ever going to be a positive defender. But people just get drawn to the eye test. They look at his long arms. He looks athletic. He looks like a guy who would be a great defender. And that's actually a bigger problem than anything because it's like he's a much worse defender than Desmond Bain. Much worse, you
Mm.
know? And so like to me, it's like if you don't compete on the defensive end, I kind of already know what you're about.
Yeah.
You're not about winning. If you're not competing on the defensive end in high school and college, like if your motor is like on and off in that regard. And then the other part that sort of gets swept under the rug is, you have these guys who shoot these somewhat efficient percentages, and Anfernee Simons, I think he's like 58% true shooting, but it's like, defense makes you tired. Tired legs miss shots more. So, you're loosely like above. How would you feel if you were really giving it your all on defense? Like your percentages might plummet. So I really, yeah, I'm kind of out on Anfernee Simons. I don't know how you feel about that.
Anthony Simons, I think he'd be a good fit. I've never been that big of a fan of him, to tell you the truth. Like
Hmm.
he would be a good fit next to Scotty, but the whole defense thing I'm not a fan of that either.
But it's
Uh,
like I'm just noticing it with like De'Aaron Fox, right? Like yesterday, you watched De'Aaron Fox
oh
carve up, the Golden State Warriors, and you're
yeah,
like, man, he's so good, and he might just be good enough that you could build a competent defense around him, and he's worth doing that for. But I'm not doing that for anything less than that,
uh,
right? Like it makes
but
roster
top five
construction
pick.
so difficult. Yes, he was a top five pick, but also like I think he's okay. He might be the reason they get out of this round, but he's also the reason they're not getting out of the next round, right? Like him and Sabonis are
The
awesome offensively,
the
but their
combination.
defensive,
Yeah.
issues as a combo are exactly why no one in their right mind should be picking this team to win an NBA title. And if they win an NBA title, I'll change my tune and I will definitely rethink everything I know about defense. But until I see a team win with a point guard who is that big a defensive liability, I mean, I've never seen it. Have you? Chauncey Billups was a good defender. Derek Fisher was a good defender. Steve Nash wasn't. two of those guys have championships. I'm not saying it's all on Steve Nash's point of attack defense, but it's like it's hard to win.
No, that's a good point. I was
Steph Curry
wondering.
got a lot better on defense too.
That's true. I really like where we're positioned right now in the draft, going back to the draft, just because like I feel like coming out of this draft, we could really come out with Scotty's backcourt mate for the next maybe 10 years or so. And do you feel like Hawkins is that?
I feel that way about a few guys, right? So there's a few guys. So and I don't know if it's necessary. Like I like Cason Wallace, obviously. I like Anfernee Black a lot, and I do think he's a guard, and I think it would be really interesting. But the construction of a roster around Scotty and Anfernee Black and Jakob is going to be weird. But you know, if those other two guys are perfect, then it could work.
I've heard you're not a fan of Keontae George.
I'm not. I'm really not. And I don't know if it's a personal bias. Like I just always maybe I don't know. What do you like about him?
First of all, I feel like he has really great feel for the game. And I feel like this team really needs like a shot maker. A shot taker and a shot maker, especially if Fred's going to be gone. Like, I feel like we really need somebody that can create, that can get their own shot, but still able to spread the floor out.
You don't think Scotty can do that?
I think he can, but not. I think but I don't know, like on a consistent basis. Like, how many possessions down would he? Like, how many positions can he come down and do that consistently?
Well, that's the thing with Keontae. Like, I mean, can he do that at the next
That's
level?
true. We don't
he's
know
already he's already having trouble gaining separation at at that level, right? Like
I did some research on him. This might just be him trying to sell himself or make excuses for himself, but he says that like he felt like he put on too much weight this summer.
He looks like it.
He felt like he put on too much weight this summer, and he actually was playing with an ankle injury too because of the weight or something like that. And he felt like he didn't have as much lift as he needed, because he felt like he really needed to get strong for Big 12 play this year, and maybe went overboard. So I don't know if that's him trying to make excuses, but like that's what he says necessarily. And like he's still a really good shooter, even though the numbers don't really show it, but like it's really good volume. Like I think he was taking like 7 threes a game. And I think I saw a stat like the last freshman with like that much volumes, like that volume of threes, and like his assist percentage, Trae Young.
Interesting. I mean, I'm just on NBA Draft Room, and they have a comp as Eric Gordon.
I see more. I think
that's more of the stocky thing. I think because he's 6'3".
I see Jamal Murray kind of.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I kind of see. I see Jamal Murray, McCollum, like that type of combo guard.
I don't know. I don't know if he's gonna climb.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's gonna climb, but you know, you talk about backcourt mates for Scotty Barnes. There's gonna be a lot
around there. Yeah, so good spot to be on.
One of them, I mean, okay, so just to rail off some names for some people who may be wondering who we're talking about. So going back, Anfernee Black, Jordan Hawkins, potentially Grady Dick, although he's probably more of a small forward, Cason Wallace, Jalen Hood-Schifino, Keontae George,
Nick Smith Jr.
Ryan Rupert, Nick Smith Jr., and
the guy from Michigan, Kobe something.
Yes, Kobe Buffkin, and I was just going to get to him exactly. So I was going to say that I think like right now this mock draft has him 22nd, 23rd. I could see him going all the way up to 14, 13, easy. He's long, he's bursty, he's got an incredible feel for the game.
He's an amazing finisher at the rim. I think he finished at like 71% at the rim or something like that.
Yes. He did. So he actually, who does he remind you of?
I really don't even have a comp for him, honestly. I'm just trying to think like of a guard that's finishing at the rim like that. Like he's honestly a 3-level scorer. Like he could score at all 3 levels. I don't know who comes to mind for you, because he plays defense too. That's the thing.
Yeah, I've been trying to nail down a comp for him for like 3 weeks, and
You know,
I can't quite. But
have, have you noticed like a lot of combo guards in this draft actually play both sides? It's kind of weird.
it's great. It's
I know it's
great.
great.
This is literally exactly what you need next to his
Hmm.
point, right? You get a solid 1 through 2, maybe 1 through 3 combo guard who can both initiate and play off ball, then you're in great position, right? That's the ideal backcourt mate. Here's who's not a great backcourt mate: Mark Jackson in his prime. I don't think that's a great backcourt mate. Someone who needs to dominate possessions like that. I
I'm a,
want someone who can actually get off the ball and do some stuff and shoot, right? And because it amplifies both players, right? Because Scotty is happy to get off the ball too, right? But then the other part of it is, do I trust Scotty Barnes guarding point guards with his high hips, going into next year and especially going forward, as he ages? Probably not. He's
okay.
definitely going to be like a point guard, on offense, but maybe he's going to end up becoming a small forward on defense. So that means that
Yeah.
your two and whoever plays 2 next to him on offense and whoever plays 3 are going to have to slide up a position and guard the 1 through 2 on the other end,
Hmm.
as primaries. So anyone that we draft has to be a good defender. I like Kobe a lot. And obviously I like Jordan. Jordan and Kobe. That's funny. That's funny. It is hilarious how many Kobe's, Jordans, and Jalen's there are coming into the draft every single year. But there's the impact. Yeah. Someone saying
Yeah.
Case and Wallace would be fantastic. Someone said something egregious, and I just want to address it here. Hang on, because our chats, someone has to always say something egregious. Black is the Suggs of this year's draft.
No.
No.
Oh,
No, 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 at all. No. Jones Suggs was like, honestly, like, no. The only thing they have in common, literally, the only thing they have in I think the only thing they have in common is that they both played football. That's it. But
I
like,
didn't know Black played football.
pardon?
I didn't even know he played football.
Yeah,
But
so
like,
he was amazing at football.
I,
Like his I think he was a wide receiver, and
I don't know.
Suggs was a quarterback.
I like it when basketball players play football. I don't know why. I
So
kind of like
so
that.
so Anthony Black, so I did a lot of deep dive into him, and honestly, like, I don't know where his mock projected rate is, but I have a feeling once people get him in a room and start talking to him, I think he can go as high as 4, 5. Um
He's gonna
he
rise a lot like
he
Scotty did.
will. He will, especially if he can show, like, he's the Scotty Barnes of this year's draft in so many
Yeah.
ways.
Yes, yeah.
But if he can show that his shot mechanics have improved even like 10%, like jumbo playmakers like that, they don't grow on trees. He's a real guard. His feel for basketball comes from soccer. So I know this is a total Jordan Hawkins thing. We'll get back to Jordan Hawkins, but a little side tour on Anthony Black. Born in Germany. Did you know this?
I did not know that. No.
Yeah, so he spent the first 4 years in Germany, and yeah, so he played soccer as a kid, and he attributes that to his entire concept of space. So he
Interesting.
knows just how to fill space, and like downgraded him.
Hello. Hello. So I guess it's just me. I'll just wait for him to get back, I guess. Some big shoes. I don't know if I could live up to that. Okay. Well, who do you guys like for the 13th pick? Like who you guys' favorites?
Sorry about that. I got booted out. I
Fine.
hope. Pardon?
Just in time. I was about to take over the show.
Nice. I've always feared that, like when I'm having one of those controversial calls with someone, I'm like, what if my internet skips out like right at that moment and that person just goes like crazy and just like says all sorts of crazy shit and gets me banned. Anyways, I have no idea what you said in the last minute because my internet really skipped out. I have no idea what is going on today. I promise I'm in Canada with Rogers and this is not a glowing endorsement for Rogers Wi-Fi. But you were saying, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, so like I personally feel like because I'd rather like more of a combo guard next to Scotty than like I guess a movement shooter or shooter like Hawkins per se. Because like I just don't know if Scotty's consistently gonna be able to handle like the on ball. Like, do you really feel like he's gonna be like a player like Doncic, like he can handle that type of usage consistently?
I don't think he needs to be a player like Doncic necessarily. I think he is happy to move off the ball. I don't think so. Yeah, so like I don't know. To anyone who follows me on Instagram, I did or on Facebook, I wrote this entire like season review of Scotty, which is the basis of a script that is going to be converted into a video at some point next week when I find some time between all the pen dance prep that I'm going through right now. But basically in it, I talked about how this entire year for Scotty was a shift. It was a shift
Uh-oh.
from the type of player that he was probably destined to become. Hello?
No, you just froze for a quick second, but go.
I
Yeah.
froze? Okay, my bad. Um, man, this is bad. Anyways, so I said, basically the type of player that he was supposed to be versus the type of player that he eventually needs to become, right? And we saw a hint of the player that, he already is a lot last year, right? When he was sort of dominating in the post and doing a lot of the hustle stuff, the putback stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in December, he really struggled, right, this year. And the team started to struggle. And so for January, just as a emergency, get my team back on, he abandoned the script, right? And he went right back to his rookie year stuff,
Yeah, without
right?
you started using him like Jokic.
Right. No, I don't know if we tried using him like Jokic. It's
Well,
just, it was an expanded version of what he already was. And what we saw was probably his best month of the season in terms of offensive output. He averaged 18 points per game. And suddenly everybody is like, well, at least I was thinking like, oh, great, his season has turned around. But I lost the forest from the trees because his 3-point shooting, sort of tailed off. His attempts around the basket kind of were upticked. And I was like, okay, so this is the compromise with young players. Do you lean into what you're already good at, right? And just focus all of that other stuff that you're not so good at for the off-season work? Or do you get in-game reps at what you're trying to become good at, right? And I think that with Scotty, it was a balance between the two, and it shifted from month to month. So he came into the season kind of like doing all the new stuff that he worked on in the offseason. So more 3-pointers, we had that 5 3-point game, right? Then it started to fall off a little bit after the injury. And obviously, if you get injured and you're a newer shooter and all the moves are new, like, and you're feeling a little uncomfortable, the shot is just going to go completely off, right? He's not Kobe Bryant. He can't, like, he doesn't have the experience to be able to adjust his shot to like a hurt ankle or like, he has to be like 100% just to shoot normal. And so what I found was like he struggled in December, and maybe someone got into his head and said, listen, like, we're about to lose the season. Maybe we need to put the development on hold and you just need to help us win for a month. And he went right back into the post and it was immediate. It was literally like had one conversation and literally that night, his entire play style changed. And it was like, where's this Scotty been all year? And he's dominating dudes in the post and he's crashing the glass and he's putting up like these big numbers. But it's like, yeah, but he's not really shooting the ball anymore. He's not really doing a lot of the ball handling stuff. He's not really playing like a guard. He's more or less transitioned to a forward. And that's when I got so mad at Will Lou and Blake Murphy because they kept saying like,
position. He's a power forward.
He's gone back to center and that's why he's thriving. But really, that's what he's already good at. And so, to those people who say, well, he's flatlined as a player, he hasn't. He just chose to become a different type of player. And for most of the months of the season, that was the struggle. So the expansion is away from what he's good at and more towards what he's not good at, which is like what we saw towards the end of the season when we started seeing a lot of that mid-post package come out and a little bit of the dribble creation and, that stuff. That's not really stuff he saw in the first year. Even in his best games, he was like leaking out in transition. He was bullying through guys. And that was part of the article that I was writing, which is like, he's not Zion Williamson. He can't just go over guys in the NBA level. So he needed to take a year to adjust and learn how to go around them, right? And that's hard, I think. For a guy who's just gone over and through people his whole life, to learn how to go around people is hard. And so I'm happy that he took the lump on his, scoring, because that definitely takes a suspension of ego, because you're obviously it's gonna come back to you, right? It's gonna come back as criticism. Oh, your shooting percentages are down. You're not progressing. You're shooting, your scoring average flatlined. What the F, right? But it's like if tomorrow PJ Tucker started, if PJ Tucker at some point, in his career just said, no, I'm gonna try to be a movement shooter, as opposed to a standstill corner shooter. Like, he would suck for an entire year.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? Or if, what's another example? Like an OG Anunoby, right? Like an OG Anunoby is a perfect example of a guy who's constantly trying to do things that he's just not very good at in game. Like, he knows he's a terrible isolation scorer. He's been one of the worst isolation scorers 2 years running in the NBA. But he keeps having to do it. He keeps trying to do it because that is the type of player he's trying to become. Mm-hmm. And so, like, if Jakob Poeltl, for instance, like started shooting threes next year as a need to expand his shooting, and he shot 22% for that year, yeah, if you looked at his freaking splits from this year to next year, you'd be like, Jakob Poeltl's shooting percentage dipped 10%, but it would be necessary. So I think Scotty's evolution eventually, like, I think his handle is coming along beautifully. Relative to where he started at Florida State, where he would like do 2 dribbles and that was it. It was 2 dribble, back down, 1 dribble, back down. There wasn't like counter, boom, back, step back, 3. Like, that wasn't there. So this is like, it's the growth is coming for sure with Scotty. Like, I definitely see it. Will he get to Doncic level? Like, I don't think anyone's gonna get to Doncic level,
Yeah.
But could he get to Cade's level as a creator? With much more efficiency and size and whatever. I definitely think so. Yeah.
What about Halliburton?
I think he can be better than Halliburton, and Tyrese one of my favorite players.
See, like, I still think he's gonna need a secondary ball handler and secondary creator. That's not Pascal, especially if Fred's not going to be on the team.
But why can't it be Pascal? Why can't it be Jakob? Like, you think Jakob is like one of the top, 5 passing centers in the NBA, and I think Pascal is one of the top 5 power forwards in the NBA passing. Like, you have this incredible way. So if the other 2 players would Scotty, Pascal, and Jakob, if those are unalterable, and let's just say hypothetically, they for whatever reason move off of OG Anunoby in a trade for multiple draft picks or young prospect or something like that, then those other 2 players better be like snipers, and movement snipers would be even better because you do have 3 creators, you do have 2 dominant screeners in Scotty and Jakob. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like It's like when
I see what you mean. I see what you mean.
like when Leo was Leo, the guy who called for the Sacramento Kings. Congrats to the Kings and congrats to Leo. I caught his show late last night. He was like on the court and he was very excited about the Kings beating the Warriors. So I think a lot of people were very in the third quarter there.
First since '06.
Yeah, 2006. That's crazy. I mean, Leo was a kid when that happened. That's crazy.
It's funny.
So yeah,
Yesterday I'm watching the playoffs with like one of my friends, and then like so the Kings win their first playoff game since 2006, and then like the Knicks win their first playoff game since like 2015 or something like that.
mhm.
And I was just like, look at these two like poverty franchises, and Raptors aren't even in here. It's so embarrassing. Like, but anyways, go on.
Yeah, like I mean, the Raptors and the Warriors had like a 9-year run for the ages. Both franchises were just so. Oh,
Yeah, yeah, I'm here.
I think I was talking.
I'm still here.
Uh,
You're just breaking up a little bit. Okay, I'll just keep talking into Rob. He's back.
okay, God, this is so bad. I don't know what is going on here. Okay, so this question: who do you definitely draft ahead of Hawkins in this draft?
Are you asking me?
Yeah,
See, like,
I mean, obviously
Auto-
there's three answers right at the top. I'm sure of Victor, Scoot, and Ammon. I
obviously,
guess I'm trying to understand where he stands on your big board.
I take pretty much all the combo guards before him. Unfortunately, like Kaysen, I take Kaysen before him. I take,
Do you see Kaysen as a combo guard? I see him as a point guard.
but I feel like, especially next to Scotty, he'd be off ball majority of the time.
Mm, I see what you're saying.
So that's what I mean by combo guard. So I see,
Okay,
like,
so you take Kaysen over him?
I take Kaysen over him. I take Keontae George over him.
Okay.
And this one might even surprise you more. I'm guessing Anfernee Black is already off the board.
No, you'd have to mention him. Yeah.
Okay,
he's
well,
another.
I think he's off the board at that point, anyways. But I take Anthony Black over him, and this one might shock you even more. I'll take Nick Smith Jr. over him as well too.
Damn.
I know the numbers are really bad with him. The numbers are really bad with Nick Smith. So I already know you probably don't like him all that much. It's just like,
It's not that I don't like him. It's just it's really hard to gauge.
but he missed like half the season though. We have to take that in context as well. Like he missed half the season.
I'm not holding like so here's the thing. Like there's such a limited sample size though,
Yeah, but like
right?
he was an
But
amazing.
with Jordan there is such a trackable growth element with him,
Mhm.
right? Like I like guys who get this much better from year 1 to year 2.
And it's funny, I think the Raptors feel the exact same way. That's why I feel like they always go for, I guess, more experienced players because they can see the development over the
Well, I
years.
mean, they drafted experienced players with Siakam
Yeah.
and Flynn, right? And technically Delano Banton
Pirtle
as
as well.
well. Pirtle was second year, right?
Yeah, just like Jordan.
2 years.
Yeah.
So I think that's
DeLon Wright.
DeLon Wright was, I think, 3 or 4 years, wasn't he?
Well, 2 years in JUCO, and then
Right.
junior at Utah. Same thing with Norman Powell, senior. Like,
Those are second round picks, though. I think
Yeah.
it's the lottery pick. Maybe, and that's the kind of weird thing. You haven't seen the Raptors at this part of the draft before, so you don't exactly know their draft philosophy. But I think, if I understand Masai, it will be closer to the draft philosophy of a 20th pick than a 4th pick, which is to say that I think at 13 they would swing for something with a higher floor,
I agree.
provided the ceilings are relatively close.
I think they have to. The fact that they traded away next year's pick, so they have to get somebody that's going to contribute.
And I think like when I look at this draft, how many players do you legitimately think are going to contribute to winning next year? I'm talking contribute to winning like
No, I agree. Out of all those three
um
guards I just named, that I
Walker
take
Kessler
out of all
contributed to
those
winning.
out of all those three guards I just mentioned, that would take over Hawkins. I probably only think maybe Kaysen's the only one that would contribute right away. Him and Black were probably only two I think that could
You think
contribute right
Anthony
away.
Black will contribute right away? I think he'll contribute as
Yeah,
like a connector three, two. I think his
on defense as well.
that too. He's so disruptive on defense. It is ridiculous. And his timing and pacing and just understanding of the game. I think that's usually why young players tend to take like 3-4 years before you really see any dividends on their impact on winning. It's usually because most of them don't understand the game very well and they need to be coached up on it. So it is very rare to have a guy like Anthony Black who really understands the game so well. Um,
And
and
like,
maybe it hasn't even come close to scratching his potential. Like James seems to think he's going to be a bust here, but it's like I'm looking at a guy like who hasn't even scratched the surface of his athletic potential. Like he can get in such better shape. He can get so much stronger. He does not look physically like developed. Like
yeah,
I saw an interview with him from last week, and I was like, this guy looks 14 years old.
yeah,
You know, a very big 14 years old, but like, you know, physically he does not he does not strike me as someone who's like overly well defined. So you know, with some work and strength and conditioning and stuff, like he could be like even better. But the stuff that he does is hard to teach. Um, I
yeah.
don't know what the ceiling is on a Keontae George. I'm not sure, but you know, also like I have a type, like a player type that I overlook very often, and that player type is Ben Matherin. Ben Matherin. Like
Okay.
I overlook guys who don't play defense
You
because I
think
just
Keontae
strike
doesn't
them
play
out.
defense?
No, he does. He does. That's
That's
the
what I love about this draft and like the area. Like I've never seen like I feel like every combo guard can play both sides, and I've just can't recall. I can't recall the last time that was. Yeah, usually combo guards just don't play defense. They just are off, just play one side of the ball. So it's interesting.
like
Uh,
a Kobe White.
exactly, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Tyler Hero.
Yeah. I mean, there is a value add to players like that, and like
See, what
you know,
about
ironically,
Keontae like
Jordan
that?
has been compared to Tyler Hero a lot. I don't think
Jordan
he's the
Hawkins?
passer. Yeah, I don't think he's
Really?
the passer
I
that
don't think
Tyler is.
I go either. Like Tyler.
I don't know, man. Like I understand where you're coming at with the ceiling. Like what is the value of a player like this or whatever. Because if he can't create his own shot, like off the dribble, I guess, like, and he can't get to the basket and put pressure on the rim, then he doesn't really have superstar potential,
There you go.
right? But here's the problem. When you look at the numbers, and I know that you're saying you're more of an eye test guy, so I'm pointing to the broader numbers.
All right.
This draft will produce maybe 2 superstars max, right? That tends to be the average. If it's a really good draft, it might produce 3.
This is a really good draft.
So maybe there's 3, right? And you know, money says at 13, you've got a chance to maybe get one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because 2 of them are usually off the board by that point, right? So if you find your Kawhi, your Devin Booker, your Kobe Bryant, whatever, fine. There's probably like 2 all-stars also, like mid-card, you know, 2-3 time all-star type of guys too. And then there's just a whole bunch of really good starters, right? But someone like Desmond Bane, right? Like what is that? Because I guarantee you, look at Desmond Bane's, you know, college footage, you're not seeing a star there, right? It's
Yeah,
definitely
but
not a
like
superstar. But
that's
like what he can do next to a superstar is insane. And actually, even his numbers this year without Ja in the lineup are incredible. So it's like I think
I feel like somebody like Desmond Bain, like I feel like he got his points a lot more differently in college compared to
would you have seen
Hawkins.
Devin Booker as a superstar or like
No,
a really high upside guy coming out
that's
of college?
very good. That's a very good example. No, I didn't. I did not see Devin Booker as a superstar. I definitely never saw him scoring 71 points in a game. But so yeah, that's a very good example. But like, so you find Hawkins and Denver and Booker are comparable as prospects?
I'll tell you why I think he has a yes, I do. And maybe like close-ish. And the reason that I say this is because when I look at superstars, I always come back to the exact same argument, which is always space. How much space do you need? How much space do you create? That's it. That's all it is. Like basketball to me is the simplest equation on earth. It's such a simple game when you really get past all the, minutia of like vert and, all the other stuff. It's just space. Shaquille O'Neal couldn't shoot a fucking jump shot to save his life, but he just generated so much space, created so much space, manipulated so much space that he was unstoppable. He just, that's just what it is. So with Hawkins, the quickness of how he moves around the court, and then the other thing, I've talked with Brian about as well, Scotty's trainer, was just about how you move, like the rhythm of how you move around the basketball court. To me, it's like some people have very disjointed movements, some people are very fluid, some people, they change directions really well.
That's why, like, I've never been so high on OG, like, developing this offensive game. Just, like, the way he moves is so, like...
But does the way Kawhi moves, you know what I mean? Like...
Yeah, but it's not... I feel like Kawhi moves a lot more fluid than OG does. Maybe not a lot more, but I feel he's more fluid than OG.
I think Kawhi's closer to the ground. His torso is lower. Whereas OG's torso is a little bit higher, and I think that the longer legs create less of a shift in terms of how he can manipulate space, ironically. But the way Hawkins, like how he can get his shot off with like almost no hitch in terms of how much space he has, like I think that, some people say Klay Thompson. Right? Klay Thompson is another example of a guy that you probably could not have imagined, putting up 62, 70 points,
Agreed.
whatever.
Yeah.
So I see him in that
around
mold.
The range as well, too. I think he was the 11th pick. 11 for 12th pick.
Yeah. So if Jordan Hawkins can become a Klay Thompson, well, I think Klay Thompson is the greatest player you could ever imagine, a prime Klay Thompson putting next to a Scotty Barnes.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, of course, Klay in his prime was also a godly defender. So I think that with Jordan, it's interesting to note that you said that you saw like really good defense, depending on the game you watched. So like, I think if he can get stronger, his lateral quickness is there for him to be a very decent defender. I don't know if he can be a great defender like Klay Thompson, but maybe he can. And ironically, I've always compared Klay Thompson and Fred VanVleet a lot. And I've said that Fred VanVleet is basically a shorter Klay Thompson. That if Klay Thompson was 6 feet tall, he'd basically be Fred VanVleet. Not in terms of the way they play, but rather their upside and skill set. Because honestly, like if Fred was way taller, like
if Fred was 6'6", he'd be like a perennial all-star.
Exactly. And I think that also like if Klay Thompson was forced to orchestrate an offense, it would look a lot like the Raptors offense, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the dig. But yeah, so that's where I see like, so I think Jordan would be a really great addition for the Raptors, but I appreciate where you're coming from on Keontae. I don't see it. I don't see Keontae George. I don't see Nick Smith Jr. For whatever reason. So they don't strike me as Messiah guys.
I'm guessing you've watched some Arkansas games.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to watch Black, obviously. Did you catch later in the season when they played Alabama? I think
yes.
Nick Smith had been back for like 3 games or so. And like I just finished watching that maybe like an hour right before I came on here. And like you didn't think that was like a good game for him? Like I like the way I thought the pressure he puts on ball was really good. And he seems very long. And then like I was watching the
he's got a 6'9" wingspan.
Yeah.
He's 6'3" and a half, 6'4".
I like his physical tools. I feel like he really moves his feet well as well too. The shot didn't drop here, but he was a really good shooter in high school. And I don't know, I just want more shot creation on the team. That's just me personally. But I do love Hawkins. If we end up with Hawkins, I have no issue with it because I feel like Hawkins is really plug and play. Like I already see his role on our team next year. Like I can see it. Like I don't even have to. I can already see it. So like I wouldn't be upset with that outcome at all.
But you think that at their best, one player is decidedly better than the other,
I
right?
think one. I think you don't think like Keontae has star potential.
So here's what worries me about a player like Keontae George, and this is just it's going to be purely stats, okay?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why this bothers me. So when a player's turnovers and assists are almost dead even, that worries me.
Okay.
It does. When a player who is billed as a lights out like volume 3-point shooter shoots below 35% from three in college, I mean, granted, his percentages from three are almost identical to Jordan Hawkins as a freshman,
Yeah.
right? So,
And I
fair
think he's
point.
got like 47% on catch and shoots.
Right. Was he 5-star recruit? I think he was.
Obviously, yeah. He was like top 5. He was ranked in the top 10 going into the year.
So
It was
that's
a bad year.
and I think that might be the other part that worries me a little bit, right? So this is like a trending down stock, right?
Okay. Fair enough.
Like you could also you can say it's injuries, and look, he's the type of athlete that once he gets into gyms and people start working him out, if he's healthy, you know, especially like in an open gym, he could probably hit like 95% of threes or 92% of threes or something like that, right? You start doing individual workouts with him, you start doing the vert tests, he'll probably blow away the combine because he's got like springs for legs, right? So, I mean, and his
I don't think he's that great of an athlete, funny enough. I don't think he's like, what do you think he's going to measure at the combine? I don't think he's going to measure like a 40 or anything like that. Maybe like
Joe Wieskamp measured a 42.
Okay. But I never watched Joe Wieskamp in college, so I can't really say.
It's hard to tell because like some guys just can't do that stuff in games, but they test off the charts. Like Scotty Barnes had a 40-inch vertical. I don't think you've seen him get 30 inches off the ground his entire NBA career.
That's true.
Right. So yeah, so I'm just saying like he's the type of guy that once you get him into a gym, I think he could blow some people away with how he moves. And, you know, people could buy the whole like, oh, we're getting someone who was injured and the injuries are in the past and so he's undervalued. Like I could see him springboarding past Jordan Hawkins, especially because of the AAU buzz and all the highlights and all that shit that's been around about him. Anchoring bias is real for sure with prospects. I'm actually like curious to see where he was ranked. You're saying top 5?
I think because he's like I heard it during the game. He's like Baylor's highest recruit of all time or something like that.
He was 3rd. Oh my God.
That's what I'm saying. And I think Nick was like 5th.
No, Nick Smith was 3rd.
Oh, I'm getting them confused then.
Derek Lively was 1st. Dariq Whitehead was 2nd. Nick Smith
really
3rd. Dylan Mitchell 4th, and that's who I was mentioning earlier. Dylan Mitchell from Texas, who may actually not even get drafted. And ironically, Dariq and Dylan are both from Montverde. And Keontae George was 6th.
I would like to have a little Montverde reunion in the Raptors as well, so that'd be cool.
We already have a Montverde reunion.
I know. I'd like to have more.
More Montverde players.
Yeah. Just make Scotty feel at home as much as possible. Because
I have a feeling Masai's going to hear what you just said and trade for Ben Simmons.
I'm guessing he played with Jalen Hood-Fashino and
Scotty?
Yeah, and Tyreek White as well, probably.
I don't think so.
I think because I heard Tyreek White was at Montverde since like grade 8 or something like that.
I remember that team pretty closely.
They're probably coming off the bench, obviously. They weren't like...
That would be interesting. I mean, Caleb Houston was coming off the bench. That team was stacked, man. I really think about it. It's like an NBA like factory they're building up there in Florida. Anyway, I think this has been an interesting discussion on Jordan. I like his fit with the Raptors for a million reasons, but mainly I like him. You know, and I think like sometimes you get a feeling for a prospect like as a person, and you also start to like look at all the stuff that, you know, might help them. It's also a culture thing, you know. It's not for everybody, you know, moving far away from family, moving far away from home. So you do have to do all the psych eval, and it's hard to not be able to talk to him directly and ask him questions. And, you know, I did reach out to him and see if he would want to come on and have an interview at some point. I reached out to Kaysen as well. We'll see if they get back to me. That would be really cool to have an interview with those two.
That would be cool.
But we'll see. Like, I mean, I could definitely see him. I see him as like a very tough-minded person, like a little bit stoic. Like I like how he doesn't get too high and too low on the court. Did you notice that about him as well, or am I just reading into it?
No, I definitely noticed that he does get kind of hyped sometimes, but like majority of the time, yeah, he stays even keeled. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's this sort of like humility and like work ethic to him. He has a very clear idea of who he's trying to be. I like that about him. He already has a relationship, and I mean, like, I don't know, there's like some sort of element of uh pedigree with you know, UConn already having produced Rip Hamilton, and
Sure.
he already has a relationship with Ray Allen. Like they've met and stuff, so it'll be like easy for him to pick
Very
their
good.
brains on some stuff.
Yeah.
And he has a, like, I like prospects who have put some thought into who they're trying to be. Like there's something about it. Like when I listened to Scotty talk about who he wanted to be when he was 17, I was like, do I believe him, and do I believe he can do it? If I do, then this is someone to get really invested in. And I did, and I do.
Yeah. Okay.
And with him, when he's saying like he's watching Rip Hamilton tapes,
That's
like
great.
that to me is like, is this is great. Like he's someone who's studying the
Self-aware.
guys that exactly. He is first off very self-aware. Second of all, very humble. And I think that is super important. And I think about guys like you know, like Damian Lillard, who weren't super highly touted, and I think that that's a good thing. You know, like sometimes you get blown up way too soon,
Raptors
right?
do like those players with like their chip on the shoulder type of thing. So I'm sure he definitely has a chip. The way he improved from his freshman to his to this year, like I'm sure he has.
I just feel like what I'm trying to get is like, if I like, Masai loves certain players like OG, Scotty. Like there's a type there, Pascal. If you did an interview with these three guys at the age that they were drafted, you would see such crazy parallels between all three of them. Very humble, very very they're not the same person obviously, but they're like, they have like a clear idea of what they're trying to do. They're hardworking, and there's sort of like a lack of like arrogance and mean spiritedness to them. Like they seem like really good people, and I think that has become like a staple for the Raptors. Like good guys, you know, like guys who don't have like the sort of
egos.
massive egos or like really bad attitudes or bad work habits. And, you know, just watching that Masai open gym episode with Scotty where he says like, we need workers, we need workers, we need workers. And I was just like, yeah, they drafted Delano Banton. He's a super hard worker. You know, you look at someone like Christian Coloco, super hard worker. Like Christian Coloco, Scotty Barnes, like it's consistent like this. I cannot point to a single player that they've drafted who's not like this.
Yeah, they always go for high motor players.
Even Joe Wieskamp, like, I mean, they were looking at Joe Wieskamp before they drafted Delano Banton. Obviously, they got him eventually, but they were looking at him for the 46th pick, and he just went off the board to San Antonio at 41, so they brought him in now. But I mean, even that guy, Andrew Nembhard, last year, I know they took a close look at him. Dyson Daniels, definitely know they took a close look at him. They met with him. AJ Griffin, another guy they took a close look at in case they were going to move into these guys. There's a type. There is definitely a type. There's like a Raptor type, and I don't know if it's conveying to people, you know, in the chat or whatever. But also Rue saying still no press from Masai. He's ducking. He is not ducking. This is very common. Even last year when the season ended and everything was kumbaya and everyone was really happy, he did it 4 days later than everybody else, or 3 days later than everybody else.
Yeah, it usually takes like a week after the season's over.
It's not a week. I think last year the player exit interviews were 3 days before Miss Ice. So if you use that as a metric, you should expect something on Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's gonna be
Yeah, so I think like assimilation into this locker room, finding someone who's high character, hardworking. I think that they will trust their development system to get him up to speed physically. Um, and yeah, like I understand that his pathway to superstar may not be obvious, and maybe he doesn't even have one. But I don't think he needs to have one. I don't think everyone needs to have a superstar outlook. I just look at it as like if you measured it on a scale, right? Like let's just say like right now he's a 75 prospect, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean, and let's say LeBron was like a 90 prospect, like something like that. So his 75 is like it's a solid floor. It's a solid floor. So he's a rotation player right now. And at worst he's ever going to be in the NBA as a rotation player.
That's
like
true.
the worst he's going to be is Kevin Huerter, right?
Yeah.
In my opinion, that's like the worst he's going to be. And then the best he's going to be is a secondary star, right? So when you say like, okay, well, he may not have the upside of a John Morant or, in this case, like a Keontae George or something like that. Like I have to look at it from the perspective of like, what is the actual like chance that somebody like Keontae George, who just shot, like, I mean, his shooting percentages weren't great either, right? So like you look at a guy like that and you're like, well, what's like, am I going to bank on the 1% chance? Like I don't know. Like there's different people say like somewhere between the floor and the ceiling, that's where the guy's going to end up, and so usually closer to the floor. But like I look at someone like OG Anunoby, like what's the worst OG Anunoby? What's the worst that Pascal? Like every single player that they drafted, if you really think about it, apart from Bruno Caboclo, has a really high floor. And they were right about all of them. Like they all ended up.
See, like I feel like that has a lot to do with like picking like in the 20s and stuff like that as well too.
Even Scotty Barnes, like if you really consider it, he
That's
just had a really high floor.
Well, Draymond's a really high floor, but that's what he was getting compared to, right?
Like at worst, Scotty was going to be like a super, like if you want to consider boom bust, like I think Jonathan Kuminga in his 0.01% outcome probably has a higher upside than Scotty because of his athleticism, right?
Good point.
But
His
you take
floor.
Scotty because Scotty's floor is just so much higher.
So much higher.
And it's not to say that Scotty cannot reach an eventual upside of a superstar. It's just his pathway to superstardom. The type of superstar he would be is not like a jaw-dropping, athletic Vince Carter type superstar. It'd be more like a Nikola Jokic, Domantas Sabonis, not a superstar, but that kind of superstar. I don't know. So it's like different philosophies. But I think if I was banking on it, I think it comes down to how likely are you to fulfill your upside. It comes down to your work ethic, your mental makeup. And I think that that's what all this pre-draft interview stuff is about. Mental, like their focus, their self-awareness. And the thing about, him is the work has been proven. Like the improvement was shown from year one to year two. You might say that's an unfair advantage to guys who are going to be one and done. But also I think there was a humility there to stay in college instead of put his, he probably could have been a late second rounder last year, if he was in a rush to get out. But he took the time. He waited. He set out a goal to win a national championship. He won one. I don't know. I think there's like a remarkable amount of self-awareness and work. And I also see like the drills that he's doing. Those are exactly the types of drills that you should be doing. And I also look at his like, pardon?
Did he play with Bouknight or no?
Did he? No.
No.
It was a year apart.
Okay.
James Bouknight was 2020 draft.
Okay.
2021.
Oh, same as Scotty. Oh,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I like him more than James Bouknight.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Anyways, Chris, thanks a lot for calling in, man. Appreciate it. And
I look forward to more of these for sure.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, man. Peace.
All right. Take care.
See ya. All right, guys. Sorry about the connectivity issues. I'm sure you guys are wanting to watch Kawhi and Kevin Durant. That game is now on. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens in these playoffs. Unfortunately, I'm going to miss a large portion of them with all the draft work and all the Pendance stuff that, Pendance is happening on May 12th to 14th. So it's going to be busy times, but I do have that Scotty video in the works, and I think it's a good one. Ben Simmons type. You know, Ben Simmons was the first overall pick, right? I don't know who you're alluding to as the Ben Simmons type, but I don't think the Raptors have a single Ben Simmons level defender in his prime on our team. Ben Simmons was beastly, man. He was a really good player. Just unfortunately. Yeah, and you know, it's interesting like how easy it is to fall in love with draft prospects. Like you start seeing their tape and you're like, wow, this guy's going to be superstar because you're seeing them largely like, I mean, I could literally show you highlights of 38 guys to 40 guys in this draft and you'd be like, guaranteed that guy's going to be an all-star. Everyone looks good in highlights. So honestly, when we're doing these draft evals, I personally think it'd be like really helpful to look at full games. I think they're much more representative. You should hone in on that player, see how they are off the ball, how their body language is, how they communicate with their teammates. Are they talking on defense? I think these are all really important parts of understanding prospects. I think too many people just go into it with the highlight package and everyone looks good in highlights. I don't really understand this comment, Josh. Would rather forget this season as he's more interested in the draft than anything else, as always. Look, man, like the Raptors need talent, super talent. Like they need an infusion of talent, but more importantly, they need an infusion of talent that actually makes sense on this roster and that contributes to winning. I don't think anyone's ducking what happened this season. I mean, I hope they're not. I will tell you, I looked ahead at the 2024 draft and yikes. But I will also tell you that I am sort of regretting that we don't have a second rounder this year. They might have looked ahead and said, look, how many young players we're going to have? Like, you know, we believe in Joe Wieskamp, we believe in Christian Koloko, we believe in Precious Achiuwa, believe in Delano Banton, we may still believe in Malachi Flynn. Like, how many of these players can you possibly have on a roster, even with the expansion of one more two-way spot? You potentially also have Jeff Doughton, you know, who you could bring back, and there's another player. I just named 6 players that cannot start for you next year, and they may all warrant roster spots. So, you know, at some point you do have to ask yourself how many of these guys are we going to have on the same team, and, you know, having another second rounder. But I was just looking at like the guys mocked in, you know, 25 to 40 range in this draft, and man, it looks interesting, man. There's like a lot of guys in there that I'm like, yikes, that guy could be good, that guy could be a rotation piece, that guy could be like a sort of underrated center. I mean, it's a very interesting, deep draft. And I think that there is some serious like star potential at the top, not just with Victor Wembanyama, but I think throughout the lottery, I think there will be like 2 to 3 stars picked in this draft. And, you know, if Jordan Hawkins is one of them, I really hope so. I really like him. I liked him a lot. Let me know in the comments below who you'd like to look at next, and we can do the whole community posting again, maybe for Tuesday or Wednesday, and set up another, you know, draft live. I apologize about the connectivity issues. Please hit subscribe if you haven't already. Yeah, talk to you later, guys. Enjoy the game. Rue saying no more prospects. We need real hoopers. Jordan's a real hooper. Peace, guys.